Most people think MC Authority is the finish line, but in reality, it's just the starting gate. And if your freight broker bond and entity and compliance stack aren't built right, shippers won't touch you. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact 7 steps that I'd follow today to get a freight broker license in 2026, pass the FMCSA process cleanly, and that can actually survive its first year. Let me tell you about a guy named Mike. Mike, he was a good guy. He was a hard worker. He drove a forklift for a warehouse in Ohio for 12 years. He knew the industry. He knew how to talk to drivers, and he saved up about 10 grand. And he decided he was done punching a clock for someone else, and he wanted to be a freight broker. So Mike does what 99% of people do. He goes online, he finds a cheap filing service, and he pays them to set up his LLC. And he thinks he's saving money. He gets his license, he starts moving loads. 6 months in, a carrier he hired gets into a wreck. A really bad one. Total loss of cargo, $80,000 worth of electronics destroyed. The shipper sues Mike. Now Mike thinks he's safe because he has an LLC. That's what the limited liability is for, right? To protect me. Okay, wrong. Because Mike used a cheap template. He didn't set up his operating agreement correctly. He didn't keep his business bank account separate enough from his personal checking. He paid for his groceries with the business card a few times. In court, the lawyers pierced the corporate veil. That's a fancy legal term that means Mike's LLC was basically fake. It was just like a paper shield. The judge ruled that Mike himself was the business. They didn't just take his business cash. They went after his personal savings. They put a lien on his house. They took the pickup truck that he drove to church on Sundays. So Mike, he isn't a broker anymore. Mike is back on the forklift, but now he's broke and renting an apartment. Okay, I'm telling you this not to scare you, but to wake you up. Most of you watching this think becoming a freight broker is about sales. It is. But before you sell a single load, you have to survive the bureaucracy, okay? The paperwork is the first filter. And if you can't handle the discipline of setting this up right, you definitely can't handle the discipline of moving $50,000 of freight across the country. So we're not building a lemonade stand here. We're building a fortress. And if you want to do this super cheap, I would go watch other channels, okay? If you want to build a business that can actually hold weight without collapsing on top of you, I would stay right here. Moved everything from produce to pipes and drive vans and flatbeds, and I walked away from a corporate job to do this my way. The industry is changing, and the regulations for 2026 are tighter than they were in 2020, okay? The margins for error are gone. So today I'm walking you through the exact 7-step process to get licensed and legal. But we aren't just checking boxes, okay? We are building what I call the ironclad authority stack. And this is the only setup that I trust to protect my assets and actually get approved by shippers. Because here's a secret that no one tells you. You can have a license, but if your setup looks amateur, no shipper will give you freight. We're gonna cover the entity, the license, the bond, the process agents, and the insurance. And I'm gonna show you the math and the scams that you need to dodge and exactly how to leverage your credit, even if it's bad, to get in the game. So let's get to work. Okay, step 1 is the entity, and this is where you form your company. Now, you're going to hear a lot of noise on the internet about this, okay? You'll hear people saying, oh, you got to register in Delaware. You need a Wyoming LLC for privacy. Stop. Okay, if you are a blue-collar guy starting in your spare bedroom or your garage, you do not need a complex corporate structure that costs you $500 a year in registered agent fees just to hide your name, okay? You need an LLC, otherwise known as a limited liability company, in your home state. Why? Because of simplicity. If you live in Texas, file in Texas. If you live in Ohio, file in Ohio. Okay, here is the no BS rule for your entity. Keep it boring. Do not name your company Superfast Best Logistics LLC. That sounds like a scam. Do not name it Smith Transport if you're a broker. Okay, that sounds like a trucking company and it confuses shippers. Name it something like Last Name Logistics or Iron Creek Freight or like Blue Ridge Supply Chain. If you file in Wyoming but live in California, California is going to charge you a foreign qualification fee to do business there anyway. And you end up paying 2 states, okay? Wyoming fee, $100, California franchise tax, $800, registered agent, $150, total wasted, over $1,000 just trying to be fancy, okay? File in your home state, get your EIN number from the IRS website. That part is free. Do not pay anyone to get your EIN. It takes 5 minutes. Step 2 is the MC number, otherwise known as the OP1, and this is the big one. This is your permission slip from the federal government, the FMCSA. So you are applying for broker of property authority, and the application fee is $300. You pay this directly to the government. And now listen to me very closely. This is where the first newbie trap happens, okay? The second you hit submit on that application, the second your MC number goes live in the federal database, your phone is going to explode. And I'm not exaggerating. You will get like 50, 60, or like 100 calls in the first 48 hours. So who are these people? They are all sharks, okay? They are telemarketers who scrape the government database for new applicants, okay? They will call you and say things like, hey, this is Officer Smith. We see a compliance error on your application. You need to pay $200 right now to fix it or you will be rejected. It is a lie. Don't answer your phone for the next 48 hours or like a week, okay? They sound official, they use fear, and they know you don't know the rules yet. So those calls die down after a couple weeks, so don't worry. So you file the OP1, you pay the $300, you will get an MC number, otherwise known as your motor carrier number, and a DOT number. But you are not a broker yet. You have the number, but your status is not authorized. So to turn that status to active, you need the next piece of the stack, and this is the one that stops 80% of people cold. Okay, step 3 is your surety bond, and this is the barrier to entry. This is what keeps the 16-year-old kid in his mom's basement from becoming a freight broker. The government requires that you have a $75,000 surety bond in place to protect the carriers. So let's explain what that actually is, because the industry does a terrible job of teaching it, okay? Think of a broker like a travel agent for boxes, okay? You don't own the truck, you hire the truck. If you hire a trucker to move a load for $2,000 and then you take the shipper's money and then run away to Mexico without paying the trucker's screwed, right? So the bond is the safety net. So if you stiff the trucker, they can file a claim against your bond to get paid. Now, here's the confusion. You do not need $75,000 in cash. Repeat that with me. You don't need $75,000 in the bank, okay? You have 2 options to satisfy this requirement. This is what I call the credit leverage matrix, okay? Option A, which is the BMC 85, which is also known as the trust fund. This is for people who have $75,000 cash sitting around doing nothing, and you put that money into a trust account. It sits there. You can't touch it. It draws 0 interest usually. So unless you're sitting on a pile of inheritance money, don't do this. Cash flow is oxygen, okay? Why would you choke yourself before you even start? Option B, the BMC 84, which is the surety bond. This is what you want, okay? This is an insurance product. You pay a premium just like car insurance, and the bond company puts up the $75,000 guarantee for you. The cost of the BMC 84 is based entirely on your personal credit score. So good credit, like 700 plus, you're gonna pay about 1.5% to 3% per year. I pay 725, and then it can go up to like $1,000 maybe if you're over that 700 range. I'd say average credit 600 to 700, you're gonna pay about 3 to 5%, so like 25 to 4,000 bucks a year. Bad credit, like sub 600, you're looking at like $7,500 plus per year. So for most of you, the cost to start a brokerage, it isn't $75,000. It's probably on average $2,000, okay? But wait, Matt, my credit sucks, okay? I know some of you are thinking this. You went through maybe a divorce, maybe you had crazy medical bills, your score is like 550, you think you're out of the game. No, not necessarily. You just have to be a little bit smarter about it, okay? If your quote comes back at $10,000 a year because your credit is bad, you don't just pay it, okay? You use the collateral hack, and you go to the bond company and you basically say, I can't pay this $10,000 premium, but I can give you $2,000 cash as collateral to hold. And often if you put up some collateral, they will lower your premium significantly. So you are then lowering their risk so they lower your price. The bond company looks at the owner with the best credit. Boom. You just dropped your overhead from $10,000 a year to $1,500 a year just by structuring your equity right. And this is how a business owner thinks, okay? A worker thinks, I can't afford it, okay? A CEO thinks, like, who has the asset I need to lower my cost, okay? Once you pay the premium, the bond company then files the BMC 84 form electronically with the FMCSA. You don't have to mail anything. It happens automatically. Now you have the entity and the MC number and the bond. So this shield is now forming. Step 4 is the BOC 84, and this stands for blanket of coverage. And this is another one where people get ripped off. Legally, you need a process agent in every state. Okay, this is just a person designated to accept court papers. And if you get sued in that state, you cannot be your own process agent in 50 states unless you have an office in 50 states. So you hire a company to do this for you. Okay, so step 5 is the UCR, okay, which is also known as the Unified Carrier Registration. And that is basically a state tax. It's an agreement between the states to tax companies that do interstate commerce. So you have to register every year. And for a broker, the fee is usually small because you have 0 trucks. It's typically around $59 to $65 a year, okay? So you go to the UCR website and select the bracket for 0 to 2 vehicles because you are a broker and you have 0 and you pay the fee. So now let's talk about the timeline. So you've done steps 1 through 5. LLC is formed. MC number is applied for, $300. Bond paid for, $2,000. BOC 3, $25, $50. UCR paid, $60. You're sitting there ready to work, but you can't. Why? Because of the 21-day protest period. So the government mandates that every new brokerage application sit on the Federal Register for 10 business days, which usually stretches to about 21 real days, to allow anyone to protest your authority. Nobody's going to protest you. It's basically like an archaic rule from like the 1930s, but you just have to wait and deal with it. You can't speed this up. You can't pay a bribe to move this faster. You just have to wait. So what do you do for those 3 weeks? Most people sit on the couch and they watch Netflix. You are going to build your infrastructure, okay? This is the dead zone where you separate the winners from the losers, okay? In these 3 weeks, you need to build your landing page. You need basically a website, not a Facebook page, a website, okay? It creates trust. Get your professional email. So like info@yourlogisticscompany.com, not like jimmybroker88@gmail.com. Don't do Gmail, by the way. Set up your payment processor so you actually get paid. Draft your broker packet, and we'll talk about the packet in a second, but understand this. Use the waiting period. So if your authority goes active and you then start building your website, you are wasting days where you could be making money. Okay, step 6 is contingent cargo insurance. Okay, let's get no BS here, all right? Is contingent cargo legally required by the FMCSA? No. Okay. The government only requires the bond. So why do I list this then as a mandatory step in the ironclad authority stack? Because you can't get customers without it. Here is the commercial reality. If you call a shipper and let's say a manufacturer of auto parts is asking you then for capacity to move their loads, the first thing they're going to say is, send me your packet and also your certificate of insurance. They want to see that you have contingent cargo insurance. Why? Because if the carrier you hired steals the load or rolls the truck and the carrier's insurance denies the claim, which happens all the time, maybe the driver was like off route or his policy collapsed yesterday, the shipper is going to come after you. Okay, so contingent cargo is your airbag. It kicks in when the carrier's insurance fails. A decent policy will cost you between $1,500, $2,000 a year, depending on your limits. Usually, you want $100,000 in cargo coverage. Don't skip this. If you skip this to save $1,500, you are telling every shipper, I'm a small-time operation. Don't trust me with your freight, and yeah, no one's going to want to work with you. So I'll just do it. Step 7 is the TMS, otherwise known as your Transportation Management System, and this is your software. This is where you build loads and you store consumer data and issue rate confirmations. In the old days, guys did this on whiteboards or pieces of paper. Don't do that, okay? You will lose track of invoices, okay? You're going to forget to pay a carrier. You're going to destroy your credit. But also, do not go out and buy a $5,000 enterprise software suite. There are great TMS platforms for startups that costs like $20 a month. You can also just use Excel right off the bat. There's really no pressure up until you start moving loads. You need it for one main reason, which is the rate confirmation. Okay, this is the contract between you and the drivers. When you book a load, the TMS, it generates a PDF that says, hey, you agree to move this load from A to B for $1,500. Okay, you agree to track and trace, you agree to these fines if you're late, you need that paper trail. Okay, the TMS automates it, but obviously we can do it manually. Okay, now I promised you a warning about contracts. When you start getting customers, they will send you their contract. It's called a shipper-broker agreement, and you are going to be so excited to get a customer that you'll just want to sign it immediately. Stop. Read the clause that says indemnification. Some shippers will try to sneak in a little bit of language that says the broker agrees to indemnify the shipper for any and all claims, regardless of the fault. And that means if the shipper packs the truck wrong and the stuff breaks, you pay for it. If the shipper's forklift driver drops a pallet on the truck's driver's foot, you pay for it. Okay? You are accepting liability for things that you cannot control. You need to push back. You need your own ironclad broker packet, and that defines exactly what you are responsible for, which is vetting the carrier, and what you are not responsible for, which is the shipper's negligence. I have a checklist of exactly what needs to be in your broker packet to keep you safe. I can't read the whole legal documents here on YouTube, but I've put the new broker launch checklist inside our private mentorship community, which you can read anytime you want. It includes the red flags to look for in shipper contracts. And if you're serious about this, you need to see that list. But even if you don't join, just promise me you will read contracts before you sign. So now you have the same authority as the billion-dollar freight brokerages like C.H. Robinson or TQL or Coyote, but you have a massive problem. You have a license, you have insurance bills, you have overhead, but you have 0 customers. So you are a broker with no freight. And a broker with no freight is just a guy with a very expensive hobby. And the paperwork is the easiest part. So the hardest part is the part that actually pays for your freedom, is getting that first shipper to trust you with their cargo. So how do you find them? What do you say on the cold call? How do you get past the gatekeeper who says, we already have a broker? I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Okay, I've recorded a video that is the Bible of freight sales. It breaks down the exact script that I used to land my first $100,000 account. So click this video and do not celebrate getting your license. Okay, celebrate getting your first check. Okay, click here and let's go get some freight.